This is the Pipkin and Turnbull show. This is season 2. How is everybody doing? We are super excited to be back with everyone. We have a lot of amazing things planned for season 2. It is September 17th, 2020. We have been on a little bit of a break. My baby Jaya was born. She's 2 months old. We were thinking about having her on the show, but she was a little cranky, so we couldn't have her on. But I'm sure eventually she will be on here, and y'all can see her. I even had her in like her Steelers jersey, which I will say, Mr. Turnbull, my friend Jamie, bought for her. But it's awesome, and we're excited for season 2. Just some quick updates. So this will probably be a link in Facebook, to YouTube and all that. So our plans are for season 2 is to really focus on that. This is more like a podcast than really a live stream. And so we're really going to be, pressing those outlets a little bit more. So we're hoping people are listening to this on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Music, and so just really excited for the future of the show, and we would love your guys' support. Be asking for that. We'll be pushing this show out even more on Twitter and everything else. So for all of our Facebook fans, still follow us, keep up with us. We're still going to probably do some live things here and there. This show will be linked. We'll have clips on Facebook, and so we just want, for you guys, especially on Facebook, to continue to follow us. But we are going to be even more outlets and even more availability throughout this whole crazy internet. So with that, Jamie, what is our rundown for our first episode for season 2?
All right, so today, guys, we have a great show for you. Today, we're looking at the battle for LA and what could have been, what happened to the Clippers, why their playoff record there, and just what happened. For then, we're going to look at Week 1 reactions to the NFL. Football is back, and I think I can speak for both of us when I say thank you for football being back. And then to close out the show, we're going to look at the best and worst things that we saw in sports. So with that, Caleb, what are your initial thoughts on the Clippers losing to the Nuggets?
Yeah, this has been a crazy basketball season. We haven't really been able to talk about the influence of the bubble. I wouldn't say it's the largest influence, but it's been interesting to see how the NBA has been playing this out. You've seen teams that were in cold spurts suddenly become extremely hot and crazy, look amazing. Like for example, the Phoenix Suns went undefeated in the bubble, and so these teams that looked like they lacked chemistry in regular season have started to come on in the bubble. So I do think that is a little aspect to this. But simply talking about this Clippers Nuggets game, let's start off with the two biggest stars and the two most talented guys on the floor. As of now, Jamal Murray down the line, or even Jokic, who was the best player that game. But let's talk about the two biggest stars, right? We had Paul George and Kawhi Leonard absolutely did not show up for that game. They looked flat, especially, I gotta, Kawhi's defense, I still think was still there. He was a great, but man, Paul George has got to show up. And he just, throughout these playoffs, I just really, there was a couple games from Series 1 that he kind of showed up, but man, it was a nightmare for Paul George, and they really needed him. And this Clippers team, what's also interesting about this Clippers team, they just did not look the same once the season started up again in the bubble. Didn't look
Yeah.
as dominant. It didn't seem like they were bought in. I don't know what happened to them because there is no reason that this Clippers team does not reach the Western Conference Finals. We should have had a battle for LA. It still
Yeah.
boggles my mind that the Clippers were not, with everything, every weapon that they have, that they were not able to get in. Now, I don't want to take away from the Nuggets and everything that they've done because you basically have to you got to drag out, street ball them, shut them down to
Yeah.
death before this team has been on its last breath in 2 series now, and they've come back. So credit to them for
Yeah.
never giving up in these playoffs, and that type of effort has gotten them to the Western Conference Finals. But this whole Clippers debacle is unexplainable to me. I mean, I can explain the Rockets, how horrible they looked, but this
Yeah.
Clippers is just boggling my mind.
Yeah. I mean, and I read yesterday that Doc Rivers said that they were fatigued and they were worn out, and it's like, well, that's on you then. That's on your conditioning program. Like, why is your team prepared for a long playoff series? And then you look at their record, and they're 0-8 in the conference finals, and that's an NBA record. So historically they're bad there. They were fatigued, and you got they blew the 3-1 lead, and then Kawhi only had 2 points in the second half. And I know they don't ask him to guard much, but you know you that's your superstar. Why isn't he showing up, putting the team on his back? You're talking about Paul George. I'm talking about the guy that is supposed to be the face of that franchise. Where was he? When your team was down, where were you?
Yeah, well, the reason I mentioned Paul George is it was abysmal. I mean, from him, you see some of the. That's why I mentioned Paul. I mean, Kawhi is right there with him, but I can't even explain Paul George. Some of just why he looked his
Yeah.
I mean, he bricked a wide open three. It was wide open for him. That's
Yeah.
not Paul. My criticism of Paul George is where were you?
Yeah.
That's I mean, I felt like watching some of the I felt like Kawhi had better effort wise. I would give it to Kawhi, but outcome, he definitely was not the same shot wise and everything else.
No.
But Paul George, it's you need Paul George to be an A game for a game 7 that will get you to the Western Conference Finals. Just watching his performance is where I'm just I don't understand because I'm a big fan of Paul George. I've always enjoyed watching him play, and at his A game, when he's at his best, he's almost unstoppable. He's almost in that KD talk. I mean, when his offensive game is on and he's red hot, with his wingspan, his height, his defensive abilities, he is could be talked about as one of the greats just because of the tangibles that he has, and so that's why I really focus in on Paul George because I can't explain Paul George as much as I can Kawhi because Kawhi is great on offense, but he's when Paul George is on, even Kawhi can't reach that level in my mind, and so that's just. But let's go back to what you said. I mean, the greatest point in all this is where were the whole Clippers team? You talk about, Lewis Williams, where early, I think it was the other series where he decided to leave the bubble to go to Atlanta. Now that granted it was for a funeral, but there were other things that he did that could have gotten him straight back into the bubble. And then there was some other players like that, the commitment level just did not seem as evident as to the opponents they were facing in the Nuggets. So let me give credit to the Nuggets, Jamal Murray,
definitely.
Jokic. definitely showed up. That team is going to show up for the Lakers. A lot of people are saying, 4 or 5 that they could get swept. Like I at this point, I could never like the Nuggets are still in it. The Nuggets
Mm.
at this point have proven like uh, you've
They
got to
belong.
you've got to top game 6, game 7. For my mind in this Western Conference Finals, but I the way that the Lakers have been so focused in, they can't go 3-1. I don't think they
Yeah.
can pull out another 3-1. They can be down 2 or whatever, but LeBron and the Lakers just have proven like they may be flat for a game, but then they seem unstoppable for the rest of the series.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
but what's hard is that Houston was so flat at the rest of their games. So it's hard to really because LA, this is definitely the best team that they faced. I mean, the way that the Nuggets have played, they have played better than the Rockets. The Nuggets would have beat the Rockets. So this is the best test that the Lakers have seen. So it's
Yeah.
gonna be a really interesting matchup. One that I'm super bummed that we didn't get Clippers Lakers. I've been saying that to
Yeah.
you all. Like I wanted Clippers Lakers as soon as we saw Paul George and Kawhi and AD and LeBron James. Like I just was hoping we'd see the battle for LA. That's what
Yeah.
bums me out the most is like
Mm.
we don't get to see that matchup. Like the
Yeah.
entire world wanted to see this matchup. And then that's not like I said, nothing to take away from the Nuggets, but man, I am bummed out. It just
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
we sat our first episode side by side at your place. We were looking down the schedule and we're like, yeah, the West is going to come down to a battle from LA. So I think everybody's bummed, and it's not to take anything away from the Nuggets. It's not to say that the Nuggets don't belong there because they do. But it's just everybody had that matchup in our heads and then we don't get it. And so that's just, disappointing. I'm going to be interested in the next, couple months to see the changes in the Clippers because you can't just go into next season and just be like, all right, we're okay. You got to change. Like I don't know if Paul George will end up leaving. I don't know if Kawhi will end up leaving. I don't like will they add somebody because you got to look at Kawhi now and his success as a champion. He had help at the Raptors, and he definitely had help when he was with the Spurs. The Spurs team is probably the best team he's ever been on. And so now you got to look at the whole roster and be like, all right, can we win with just PG and Kawhi? Or do we need to add someone else? Like, do we need to add Giannis? Do we need to add, just somebody to help us get over this hump? And I personally think they do. I don't think Kawhi can do it on his own. And I've never been as high on Paul George as you are. When he was in Indiana with the Pacers, he couldn't get over that hump. And then he was in let's see, Oklahoma City, couldn't get over that hump with Russ. Now he's in LA and he can't get over the hump. So it's just I've never really been
No,
that high on
but
Paul
here's
George,
the thing.
but
Here's what's frustrating about him is I wouldn't be frustrated with Paul George if he didn't show these moments where he's unstoppable. Like
yeah,
that's what frustrates me. And you have to admit he has shown many of those moments at Oklahoma during this course of the LA Clippers. That's what
yeah,
frustrates me is that he is legitimately talent-wise, his size and everything about him, there is no excuse for him not to be a top 5 player in this league. And now whatever past in I don't know what the past injuries whatever, but once he got off those injuries, um that's why I'm a huge like believer in Paul George, but you've got
yeah.
to show up and maybe I shouldn't be like maybe in playoffs like playoff Paul George is just doesn't show up. I mean, he showed up,
He's
in the Indiana,
inconsistent.
yeah, but that's why it's frustrating and to me to watch that happen, to see such a crazy talented guy, and everybody's like me want to watch. It's just it's
Yeah.
hard. It just doesn't make sense in my mind why you're so flat for a game 7. Anyways,
Yeah.
moving on, week 1 reactions to the NFL, and our favorite matchups to week 2. So, Jamie, I will let you kick us off with week 1 of the NFL, which was crazy to think of, but we are there.
Oh man, yes. I was just from noon to Sunday night. I was glued to the TV, football on. It was great. But one thing that I got to talk about is, the question everybody was asking when Brady went to Tampa Bay was, and when they were together, was it Brady or was it Belichick? Who was the reason for their success? And week 1 kind of, I can't say answered that because obviously we have a lot of football left to play. But Brady lost and Belichick won. And Belichick, he's got Cam Newton. Cam Newton's he's a former MVP. He's no slouch. But that was one thing. That was one reaction that I had. I was expecting Brady to play. This is like 3 straight games now with a pick 6. And he didn't play bad. I mean, besides those picks, he put his team in a position a couple times. But I mean, I think we're just kind of seeing that maybe Brady definitely benefited from being in that Belichick system, And it's not to take away from the Bucks. Arians. Arians is a heck of a coach, but that was definitely something. What do you got?
Well, I hate being one who is a defender of Tom Brady, because it was absolutely beautiful seeing those interceptions being thrown, seeing him miss completely wide open guys. But here's what I will
Yeah,
say: who were they playing? One team is playing the Saints. One team is
yeah,
playing the Dolphins, and
yeah,
and there wasn't nothing too special about, like, Cam played well. He dink and dunked his way down the field and used his speed to get into the end zone twice.
yeah,
Uh, can he do that against other teams who aren't in the AFC East? Especially when you go up against the Bills, you're going to need a little bit more than that. They still don't have weapons in New England. I still am not a
yeah.
believer in their weapons. So, could Tom have done the same thing week 1 against the Dolphins in New England? Sure. But here's what I will say, in Tampa Bay's defense was the whole team was sloppy.
Mm,
Drops, penalties. That whole game was a sloppy game, and they still had a chance to win. So very fixable mistakes, is
mm.
what I saw from the Tampa Bay Saints game. I'm still saying, hey, that. But what I will say is that Tampa's defense is for real. That
Yes.
they because time and time again that offense put them in bad positions, and I think that
Mm,
offense can correct itself.
mm.
Um, but that defense is for real, and and they were holding the Saints in check. If it weren't for those mistakes, I don't think the Saints, that score line would be totally different. So, um,
Yeah.
I so what I'm saying based on week 1, not super saying, well, obviously Belichick needs Brady or Brady needs Belichick. I didn't get that feeling from week 1
Yeah.
based on what we saw,
Yeah.
because I thought what the Patriots offense did was had great offensive line play,
Mhm.
was really smart with the 5 to 10 yard passes, and Cam gets
Mhm.
in. But and that's to the coaching staff's credit. I mean, Belichick used Cam's strengths to their benefit. So I
Yeah.
will give the victory over to Belichick just for that. They had, Cam ready in the system, and they looked pretty good. But it is the
Yeah.
Dolphins, and you look at the Saints. Like, that is two very different teams, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, Your Chiefs looked. We'll talk about Chiefs Kingdom. They looked even better. So it's scary to the rest of the NFL that the Chiefs actually got better
Yes.
with their rookie running back, Edward Hilaire. I think I said his name right.
Yes.
Clyde.
Yes.
Clyde running all over the place, looking good. The
Mm-hmm.
offensive line looked well, played well. Houston, not sure what the game plan is there, but I'm not liking it. I think
Mm-mm.
that I don't know if you know, because a lot of those points were garbage time points, really.
Yeah.
So that the Chiefs' defense played actually really well. Especially the first half going in the third quarter. The other things that from week one, that anyways, I'll get into it. Any other reactions that you had from week one, Jamie?
Um, I mean, just the 49ers was another one that just and I was looking at their stats before the show, and they didn't play bad, and but and every NFL team loses a game that you're supposed to win. But that was one that they should have won. And all offseason I've heard from 49er fans that I've talked to, like, this is our revenge tour. This is our revenge tour. And then they lose to the Cardinals. And the Cardinals aren't a bad team. They're young, and they're gonna have their ups and downs. But I was just really surprised by their week one loss. And like I said, their stats weren't bad. They could have got more out of their running backs, but um, I that one was really puzzling to me. How they lost, and maybe Arizona's just better than what we give them credit for, and maybe the 49ers aren't as good as what we gave them credit for. So that was really it, though, for me when it comes to reactions. Um, for
Yeah,
week one, though.
yeah. I the only other thing I will say is I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting from the Browns, but a 6-38 type score line there.
Yeah.
Maybe I just should have expected it, but man, the Browns. I don't know what this team has to do to get a win because they certainly have what I feel like. Maybe it is just. I mean, it's definitely quarterback play from week one. Quarterback play was horrendous by Baker Mayfield because
Yes.
on paper, like you've got players all over the field, so you can't. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just Cleveland is a head scratcher to me. The only other reaction I have is, hey, Aaron Rodgers, that man is a bad man, as Stephen A would say.
Yeah.
They brought it on.
Yeah.
And the Packers offense looked amazing. So
Yeah.
somebody said it. I said this is very true. Maybe the greatest move and the most diabolical smart move they've ever made was to draft Jordan Love to give
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers motivation because
Yeah.
he looked unbelievable week one. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, that was crazy. So week two, going into week two, one matchup that we both have one matchup that we're really going to be interested in,
Mm.
and to bring back into the conversation is the Buccaneers and the Panthers game. So both teams lost week one.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is both a divisional clash again in that NFC South. Uh, this is, to me, a better tell of where actually both teams are at, and
Yes.
especially the Buccaneers, because Teddy and Carolina with McCaffrey, they actually did a pretty decent job against the Raiders. In week one, and I still am a believer in their offense. So, we get to see another look at this Tampa Bay defense to see what they can do with a talented guy like McCaffrey and some other pieces that they have for the Panthers. This is really interesting to me also to see, like we had just talked about, some of these mistakes that the Buccaneers had made going into this matchup to see if they can correct them and seeing
Mhm.
how powerful this offense can be. The only thing is, they got pretty injured. Tampa Bay did with
Mhm.
Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and it look himself. The bright light to this whole thing was OJ Howard. He looked great for Tampa. So it's really going to be an interesting matchup for week 2. And Jamie, I'm going to go ahead and let you pick your matchup for week 2.
Yeah, yeah. You go handle your business, Caleb. Um, for me personally, I'm looking forward to tonight's game, Cincinnati and Cleveland. Because Cincinnati's a young team. They've got a rookie, Joe Burrow, at quarterback. And I felt like they should have beat the Chargers in week 1 had it been for a missed kick. Burrow put a lot of it on him and said he should have played better, but honestly, I thought he played a perfect game. I thought he did a wonderful job for that being his first NFL game. So I'm looking forward to Cincinnati and Cleveland. And Cleveland is they're puzzling to me because they've got all the talent in the world. They've got Jarvis Landry. They've got Odell Beckham Jr. They've got two good running backs and Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And then they've got their quarterback Baker Mayfield, who number 1 overall pick, Heisman Trophy winner. And but yet they can't uh, win. And it's not even get over the hump. It's they can't get to that hump because they can't win. And so I put it. I think tonight is going to be a good game. And also since Caleb is gone, I put Baltimore and Houston. I don't think Houston is as bad as what we saw last Thursday, and so I think Baltimore is going to be a good matchup for them because I think the Chiefs are really good, but I think Houston no preseason, and that's one thing I noticed in Week 1 was no preseason definitely affected everybody. The tackling was sloppy, the play was kind of sloppy, and so I'm looking forward to Caleb, just to get you caught back up, brother. I'm looking forward to tonight's matchup, Cincinnati and Cleveland. I think Cincinnati being a young team, and Cleveland just seeing where they're at versus Cincinnati. And then I'm talking about now Baltimore and Houston. I don't think Houston is as bad as what they appeared to be last Thursday. And so I'm looking for them to bounce back, and I'm also looking to see how Baltimore does against them, because Baltimore is obviously a favorite in the AFC, and so I'm looking forward to those two matchups: Thursday Night Football tonight, and then Baltimore and Houston.
Yeah, yeah, and great, yeah, and the Houston thing is hard for me to
Yeah.
how because Baltimore is going to be looked incredible,
Mm,
and that's going to be you go Chiefs Baltimore your first 2 opening games. That's pretty rough.
mm,
That's
yeah.
pretty rough. I mean, you could the heart. They looked like they needed Hopkins. What did you
Yes.
say? So like they
Yes.
looked like they needed
They.
Hopkins.
Yeah. And
But
that's not to say that their wide receivers are bad. Like they've got Kenny Stills, they've got Fuller, they've got good wide receivers. But man, they missed Hopkins last Thursday. Like just the sure hands, you throw it to him, he's gonna come down with it. They missed it,
yeah,
and it was really sad. Have you seen Houston's schedule after Baltimore?
no, I haven't looked too deeply into Houston's schedule. uh, to,
Um,
to be honest, I'm like, maybe 8 wins. That'd be a good season for him.
three and four at some point is going to be I would find a success because they have let's see, they have the Ravens next, Then they have the Steelers. Then they have the Vikings, Jaguars, Titans, Packers, and Jaguars. And
Wow.
so then it kind of eases up. They go into Cleveland, then they go to the Patriots. So it eases up. But man, that first, like, you got the Chiefs, Ravens, Steelers.
That's
Like,
rough.
that's your first 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And so we're
rough.
I don't see the Texans. I'm not gonna. I hate to go into predictions after week 1, but I don't see them making the playoffs, man. Because it's just they need some help, and I don't think Bill O'Brien is their help. And I'm looking, man. It's gonna be a new coach, new GM, because he does both there.
But they're too bought in. He is the GM. Bill O'Brien is the GM.
Yes.
They are bought in.
The owner wants them to go to the Super Bowl. The owner's going to have to.
This is at least another 3 years of this. At least.
No. I disagree. Man, Bill O'Brien will not be there next year.
You think all their picks and all their resources that they're getting in 3 years, yes. He can buy his job for 3 years.
No.
Yeah.
No. I disagree, man. No. Because there's just no way. Like, they continue to underperform. And there's no reason the Chiefs should have blew them out week 1. There's no reason. Like, we're good. We're a good team. But Houston, like, this was a team that was, like, we had a lead on them in the playoffs. And we came back and was winning by halftime.
Well, see, I agree with you. They need to get rid of him. I'm not trying to say that they shouldn't. They get rid of him now. I do not understand. I do not understand the grand scheme of all this. But I'm telling you, the ownership at Houston, they are giving him more control instead of pulling it back. That's why I'm saying they are so bought into this point that he can justify 3 years. I'm not saying he deserves 3 years. I'm saying Bill O'Brien, the way that they have positioned him, he can justify 3 years. Especially just signing Deshaun to his new contract.
All right, by, let's see, 11-15. That's the Browns game. We're going to reevaluate this. We're going to, where they're at, we're going to, like, mark it down, write it down. Anybody listening, like, mark it down, write it down. We're going to reevaluate the Texans. I think that's week 9. 11-15, before they play the Browns, we're going to reevaluate and where we think the Texans are. Because I'm telling you, they ain't. Bill O'Brien is not going to be there next year. And if he is, Texans picking top 5 for the next
I don't understand what they're doing. So I mean that's why I'm sure just say like I don't get it at all. And Bill O'Brien is really close with the people he needs to be close with the owner, the guy who's writing the paycheck. You don't bite the hand that feeds you type deal. Like he's good at that. As we said, I shouldn't bring it up, man, but the dimple always drives me crazy and we don't get to see the dimple, man, because of the mask. So, but anyways, I'm not justifying, like, here's the thing. I'm not justifying Bill O'Brien because none of it, I have no clue. But I'm saying the way that Houston has bought into him, they're in too deep at this point. They're like, okay, we'll see the plan out, which will at this point lead them to 8-win seasons. And then after 3 years, they're like, too much. It was too much. It's like with the whole Jason Garrett thing. I felt like Jason Garrett should have been gone a long time ago. But no, he knew who to keep happy. He knew who to keep happy. And I feel like Bill O'Brien is that same way. Anyways, I didn't know we'd go off into that tangent. It was fun.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was all good. So here are our favorite things and the worst things that we saw from this weekend. So I can start with mine. And then Jamie, we will go into yours. So starting with the worst thing that I saw this weekend was that Jimmy Garoppolo obviously is has lost some of his throwing ability because there is no reason he should have had it thrown that high to Mr. Kittle to where he busted up his knee. So let's talk about San Francisco for a second. That was the biggest failure from this week is San Francisco, because I don't know how you can look at the entire roster that they missed weapons on defense. They don't have any wide receivers, and the weapons that they do have got hurt, aka Kittle, which I don't know how he missed that bad on that pass. And Jimmy just, I mean, good grief, Jimmy looked. I was not impressed by Jimmy. I know that you can say you can look at the stats and all that, but that was a sloppy game, kind of on both sides. But I don't know how they get out of even their own division. I mean, you've got Seattle. You look like Arizona is going to be a good team, and then you got the Rams. I mean, and the Rams are going to stay pretty level and pretty decent. It's a hard division. And that was probably my biggest fail of the week, is just watching the 49ers kind of deplode, where you see the Chiefs as almost unstoppable. It's kind of like, I don't understand the direction for the 49ers either. So are they a one-hit wonder? Is it the case once again where they get to the Super Bowl, lose, and then they be like the worst team in football for a little while, and then somehow have a miraculous season and make it back? I mean, that's what last year felt like. Like throughout every week, and I knew that you were a big believer in them after week 2, because in week 1, I will always make fun of Jamie for being a fan of the Bengals last year, and I got onto him. So week 1, Jamie was like, hey, the Bengals are going to be good. Watch out for the Bengals. Yeah, he'll always have to own that one. He will always have to, and I will remind him. But yes, it took me a while to be on the 49ers, because this is why. This is the exact reason why, because I cannot understand how they lost some of their defensive players, the thing that held them together, and Jimmy just looked bad. Like to me, like, you need Garoppolo on his A game, because there are no other weapons there in San Francisco. My favorite thing that I saw. Any thoughts on that, Jamie?
Oh no, I agree. I mean, Jimmy, I think he's not that good of a quarterback. I'm pretty sure I've said that on this show a couple times. He'll get you what you need, and I've always just looked at him as an Alex Smith, I guess. You're going to win games with him. Can he win championships? That's another thing. But he really showed me a lot in the Super Bowl. Was he could make the throws, but there was a lot he missed, and you can't really win with that. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that 100%.
Yeah, and so my favorite thing that I saw from this weekend was Ben Roethlisberger's return as quarterback of my Steelers, and finally we have a quarterback again.
Yes.
I love Big Ben's recovery story. Basically lost all of his tendons, ripped off the bone off of his elbow, and in 1 year is coming back, and in a weird off season, really had a stellar game. He was slow, obviously, beginning, shaking off the jitters, got some big hits like he usually does in the game, but really love where Ben's at. He's really worked hard, and he looks like he's motivated and passionate to win, which I love. Mm-hmm. And the Steelers, especially getting into that second quarter, going into the second half, they looked really good. And I was already a big fan of their Pittsburgh's defense, but they can fly all over the field. They have
Yeah.
players on that defense at each position. My only question is the secondary, but the secondary plays well enough, especially with Mika Fitzpatrick holding everything in the backfield. But Devin Bush and those linebackers, Bud Dupree. But yes, the best moment for me was seeing Ben come back and throw 3 touchdowns and have over 200 yards passing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what Pittsburgh needs. And
Yeah.
this offense has incredible young wide receivers with Chase Claypool coming in, had a great game to me, being his
Mm-hmm.
first game in the NFL. Juju having 2 touchdowns, loving seeing Juju back, getting touchdowns again. And honestly, Ben should have had some better stats because there was actually quite a few drops from some of these Steelers wide receivers. So that was the biggest win for me was just seeing after a year of recovery that Big Ben is still able to throw the football well and
Mm-hmm.
accurately and with power. He zing. Yes, I used the word zing. I couldn't think of another word than zinging it in there.
He zinged
He
it.
zinged it in there. Put some power. Put some hot pocket power behind that. Uh, yeah, and so yeah, because it was kind of like they had a phone call. If you ever get a chance, definitely I would recommend watching the Ben Roethlisberger his recovery documentary. Definitely an amazing watch. I really recommend that. Look, he's given 2 options. Like you can try the surgery, we're hopeful that it works, or you can leave it and be done playing football. Like those are his two
Yeah.
choices. So, really amazing to see where he's at, and hopefully just being able to stay healthy. Um, but yeah, that was my biggest win and failure for the weekend. Jamie, what were yours?
My biggest failure would be no preseason. Preseason, the lack of we take preseason for granted. And it was more obvious this season because we didn't have it. You just saw a lot of sloppiness, a lot of just missed tackles, as I've said earlier. A lot of plays that you wouldn't have saw. And just overall just sloppiness that will get better as the season goes forward. Um, and then so that was my biggest, my worst thing for week one. One of the big thing that I absolutely loved was the Chiefs. Obviously, um, they just keep moving. They kept rolling, didn't miss a beat. Um, and just were playing just good football. To catch you up, Caleb. My worst thing was the lack of preseason and the overall sloppiness that I saw on week one. And then my best thing would have to be the Chiefs and just how they just still seem like a well-oiled machine, not missing a beat. Just continued what they finished last season. And then I would say another worst thing would have to be Brady. I see. All right, I don't hate Brady. All right, and I will never hate Brady. I respect him and everything that he's accomplished. I will go to my grave saying he's probably the best quarterback of this generation. Um, so it kind of hurt to see him go out there and just not play to his standard. So I'm definitely looking forward to him versus Carolina because I there's gonna be a big bounce back this weekend from him. I would hope. But yeah, I mean, no preseason was bad. Chiefs good, Brady bad. That's what I got.
Well, I would just say I would say I was pretty impressed by how everything was played. To be honest with you, we didn't
Mm,
see very many penalties. In a lot of games, I just everybody was saying we saw 1 or 2 penalties.
mm,
I thought we would see a whole lot more broken tackles and missed tackles. Now we did see that,
Mm.
but overall, I thought it was actually a lot better than I expected it to be,
Yeah.
in my opinion. And once again mentioning the Chiefs, I don't even know if they had a penalty at all in their game. I'd have to
I
check
don't think
that.
so.
So for me, I would say, I mean, based on all the circumstances, and I think you'd agree with me. I mean, overall, we had, based on everything, now having no off season, that it was a high level of play that
Yeah,
I didn't
considering, yeah.
expect to see week one. So that would be my only thought. To round off today, looking forward to a big matchup tonight with the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat in Game 2.
Mm-hmm.
Looking forward to seeing this amazing run that the Heat have had, and seeing some of these stars from Boston bounce back. Should be a great game tonight. The other game tonight will be, as Jamie mentioned, the Cincinnati and Bengals game. So definitely we'll be watching that as well tonight. Jamie, any final thoughts?
No, just looking forward to doing this, getting season 2 rolling. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube, like our Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and I can't wait to interact with all you guys and talk sports. So that's all I got, man.
Yeah, we're changing. We're hoping to increase everything. We want to continue to have fun doing this, and just we love doing this, love talking sports. We just hope that this can be, uh, you know, 45 minutes, an hour break in your day that you really enjoy. And so
Mm-hmm.
we're excited to be back in season 2. Y'all heard me get up and leave sometimes. Part of season 2 is I'm in season 2 of my life with a new baby and everything. So
Yep.
it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun, and we're excited for the Pipkin and Turnbull show. All right, guys, we will talk to you later.